Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's October the 31st, 2023, the day that Matt Shodell scares all the children in his Miami neighborhood. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by the gremlin himself, Matt Shodell, and Stephen Wagner. And guys, there's a lot to talk about today, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. I am going to send out that warning to the children of Southeast Dade. That if you go, you won't know that you're going to Matt Shodell's house. So parents, make sure you take a good look at Matt at this mug. I can't promise you that when he answers his door with candy that he'll be wearing his glasses. But make sure you take a good note. And if you happen to knock the door of the Shodell residence and Matt answers, just make sure you grab your kids, grab your babies, and run in the opposite direction. Just wanted to get that public service announcement out here first thing this morning. And guys, I'm going to start with the ACC schedule because it came out of nowhere yesterday. Got a little bit of a heads up late afternoon. Hey, the ACC is going to release schedules at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be for the next 7 seasons. I'm like, ooh, okay. And we found out very quickly that Miami will travel to Cal next year. That's honestly, I find that kind of cool. We also find out that Virginia Tech is back as an annual opponent for the Miami Hurricanes. They'll go alternate years in Miami, in Blacksburg. So those that enjoy Enter Sandman, you will get to experience that at least, I guess, 3 times. Is it 3 times or 4 times, Matt? Are they playing at Virginia Tech next year? No, Virginia Tech comes to Hard Rock next year. So you'll at least get to experience it in 25, 27, and 29 if you enjoy the Enter Sandman entrance of the Virginia Tech Hokies. And I don't know, guys, like I kind of hope that Virginia Tech can get its act back together, because there was a day back when both teams were in the Big East that Miami-Virginia Tech game was just an epic battle every year. And I used to love those trips to Blacksburg and the atmosphere that game would create in the stadium, and beyond just the entrance of Virginia Tech's team. I mean, you had some epic matchups involving Michael Vick and other great players, obviously. And I remember Clinton Portis, who went on to great things in the NFL, fumbling twice as a true freshman in Lane Stadium there in Blacksburg. A lot of memories. So I was personally happy to see Virginia Tech back as an annual opponent from Miami. It'll be them and FSU, and then it will rotate. And over the next 7 years, Miami will play every ACC team at least twice. So kind of interesting schedule. Matt Shodell, you've had time to review what the ACC came up with in incorporating Cal, Stanford, and SMU into the conference, figuring out a formula to schedule all these games. I think they did a nice job. I gotta applaud. I liked what I saw. I'm sure you found something negative about it. So I give you the floor, Mr. Shodell, the Grim Reaper of Halloween. I'll stop there.
I mean, they schedule through 2030. I mean, I don't look ahead. I just take it one game at a time, one day at a time, one rep at a time. I'm just trying to get better every single rep. I mean, I can't look ahead 7 years from now. I don't even know how many children I'm going to scare later today. How the hell am I going to be able to tell you what this schedule looks like in year 5, 6, and 7? No, but in reality,
he wears glasses when he answers the door tonight, or should he take the glasses off?
I'm the guy who
I'm going to go with the glasses. Like Matt,
it makes him look more professorial, right?
Actually, I was going to say he looks like way more disturbing today than he usually does. I'm personally am frightened by his appearance right now. Way more than I usually am. And
it's a hard way to start out the morning for sure.
You're both wrong. I'm the guy who closes the gate and pretends I'm not home. All the lights are out and I'm hiding in a corner. But Next year's schedule looks really easy. Like this year's schedule, it turns out, wasn't real hard. But when we entered the year and you look at the opponents and where you're playing, you're like, it's a pretty difficult schedule, you know. Clemson, Florida State, Texas A&M. Next year, there's really only one team you'll say, okay, maybe they'll be ranked, you know, highly, and that's Florida State. And that's also the only home game anybody is going to want to attend. So good luck selling season tickets next year. Thank you, ACC.
Yeah, they got a tough sell next year for season tickets.
Nobody's paying a full season for one game. I mean, that's all they have.
FAMU, Ball State, Duke, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, and Florida State. That's your home schedule.
It's as bad a home schedule in terms of exciting games as I've ever seen.
Oh my God! If I were Dan Radakovich, I would be begging FAMU to get out of that game, and I would schedule a respectable opponent.
Yeah. You know, as can I ask you, why did Lance Guidry use the phrase cat and mouse game like 25 times yesterday in his press conference? That was, to me, the highlight of the whole year. Like, I'll go to every home game from here through the next 20, 30, whatever. All the horrible opponents are going to be playing at home and away. If he just keeps talking about cat and mouse every week in the press conference,
can I ask you a question?
He's watching a lot of Tom and Jerry.
We're in the middle of a conversation about the schedule. Like, why are you taking the conversation to Lance Guidry's counting?
Because the schedule is boring. The schedule is boring. Why are you playing cat and mouse with me, Gary? The schedule is boring. Okay. And I just find it funny that Lance Guidry's watching Tom and Jerry on his free time. He already told us he goes home and watches cartoons, I guess. He doesn't want to watch football at home because he'd burn out. He told us that already. I'm assuming it's the cartoons he watches because he talks about cats and mouse. The whole press conference was cats and mouse. I'm like, what is happening?
I don't know. I love his press conferences. He's so raw. He's so raw and he's so good. And I happen to think he's doing a pretty good job as defensive coordinator. But the thing is, the thing that's interesting is with these two first-year coordinators, they're having their little blips on the screen. And I was thinking about it. And I guess since you took the conversation there, I'll have to go there and then we'll go back for a minute to the schedule possibly. But the thing I was thinking about all of this, and the thing that came to my mind was that when you're a first-year coordinator, you're learning your personnel kind of on the fly. Like you can have spring practice and fall practice. It's not the same as game day. You know, like for example, Shannon Dawson's learning that if Tyler Van Dyke is not really prepared for a defense and he's seeing something on the fly on game day, he becomes a not really great quarterback. And it's an issue. Like,
well, you know, it's funny that you bring up Tyler Van Dyke because I read a story today that the FDA has warned that 26 different eye drop products can cause vision loss. And fans are saying Tyler Van Dyke has vision loss. I'm hypothesizing here. Is it possible he's taking eye drops? Because there's 26 different eye drops that could have caused his vision loss. I'm going with that. It's not his fault. It is not Tyler Van Dyke's fault, people. Stop blaming Tyler Van Dyke. It's just wrong.
Well, if we think back, and this book on Tyler Van Dyke really got written against Middle Tennessee State last year when they rolled out all these exotic coverages in the secondary that totally befuddled Tyler Van Dyke, and he had a horrible game that day, and Miami lost to Middle Tennessee State. And from that moment on, it kind of became the book on Tyler that the way that you beat Tyler Van Dyke is you got to confuse him in the secondary and get his head spinning. And it got abbreviated last year by injury. And although he did seem the North Carolina game last year, he threw for almost 500 yards. So whatever North Carolina was doing that day was clearly not effective. And you know, maybe I can't remember to a T what they were doing, but it obviously was not the same as what Middle Tennessee was doing. But we've now seen it this year with Georgia Tech. Was the first game that he really didn't play all that well. And then against Virginia the other day, he was really struggling. And when Matt Shodell was in his basement looking at tape and very astutely collected the assortment of videos that you saw on the website yesterday, where we broke down Tyler Van Dyke's interceptions, you got a clear picture of what was going astray. Like he was not seeing the field. and he was throwing into double and triple coverage. And of course, those passes were being intercepted. He's probably lucky more were not intercepted. And when you're watching that tape, and obviously now he's watched it a million times, and Shannon Dawson's watched it, and they're trying to make adjustments this week, and hopefully they will. They had to be like screaming at themselves. Like, there's guys out in the flats that don't have a defender within 15 yards of them, because the guys that would have been covering the flats were running down up the field to provide extra defenders in the passing lanes down the field to stop the Miami throws down the field that Tyler Van Dyke loves to make. And he was just throwing the ball up for grabs on a lot of occasions. And, obviously had a very subpar game. I think 163 yards passing against Virginia. And this is a guy that regularly puts up over 300. And, you just knew something was wrong. And that was part of it. Obviously, he's got a leg issue that caused him to underthrow a pass or two. That was a problem. His shoulder might still be bothering him. I mean, he's a little beaten up, although I did see him walking on campus yesterday, and he was walking fine. So hopefully that part of it is getting better. But it was all haywire. But if they had just taken the checkdowns for 15-yard gains all day long, Virginia probably would have had to come out of that defense, but they didn't. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, who in the world was up in the press box? Like, if I'm sitting in the press box and I'm watching this, I'm like yelling at Shannon Dawson. Shannon, the flats are wide open. They're not even covering our guys. Miami never adjusted. I remember one pass to the flat. So they got some things they got to work out, and not making any apologies for Shannon Dawson. This was his game where where his operation really wasn't on top of itself like it should have been. They're not throwing to the backs, not throwing to the tight ends. They weren't taking the easy completions. The quarterback was forcing the ball down the field. There was never an adjustment made, to the point where they got to overtime and the desired strategy was not to even throw the ball. We're running the ball. Fine. It was great decision in my opinion. And I applaud Mario for making that. But that was Shannon Dawson's game where things just really didn't flow right. Lance Guidry had his against North Carolina when they weren't prepared for North Carolina's hurry up and weren't getting lined up and things like that. You don't see that on the practice field, Matt. Okay. So like the point I'm making is these coordinators are learning where their issues are, and they're learning their personnel on the fly. And it's not an excuse because it's inexcusable. You're supposed to have everything buttoned down by game day. But I think that's contributing to some of the issues that they're having in individual games at times.
Yeah, I mean, look, during your long diatribe, which I paid no attention to, I just started looking just in general, because it seems like defenses have decided you really do want to get kicked off this show. You are trying so hard. You're trying so hard. It seems like defenses have decided not to, for the most part, not to blitz, because A, Miami's offensive line is really good, and B, Miami tends to stay in some sort of max protection with either the running back and a tight end protecting, two tight ends protecting, in addition to the offensive line. I was just looking up while you were, again, going on and on and on and on for the last 20 minutes. In the most recent game against Virginia, they only blitzed 6
You know what
times.
that means, Steven? That means he wants me to shut up for the next 10 so he gets his equal time. That's all that means. Go ahead, Matt.
They only blitzed 6 times. Okay.
Go ahead. I got the stopwatch running. Go ahead.
They blitzed 6 times out of 30 passes. Georgia Tech blitzed 10 times out of 38 passes. Temple blitzed 6 times out of 24 passes. Clemson 19 blitzes and 33 passes. So Clemson's the only team out of the 4 that I just checked. I think the last 4 games where he hasn't been real good. Clemson's the only team that really tried to blitz quite a bit. So when these teams are dropping into coverage, you're right, he's not checking down his passes. And kudos to Shannon Dawson yesterday. I think he really was forthcoming. I'm the first one to sort of call out coordinators when I think they're just being not forthright and truthful. And I think he was humbled. I think that Shannon Dawson was humbled. And I told Gary yesterday, I said, listen, I now, because I know for a fact that last year Josh Gaddis was screaming and ranting and raving in the quarterback's room, and it did not go over well. And I said to Gary yesterday, I said, now when you see what Tyler's doing, you could see why Josh Gaddis was ranting and raving. It must have made him nuts that probably things that Josh Gattis thought he had coached Tyler to do were not being done, and things he was trying to coach Jake Garcia and Jakari to do were not being done the way that he thought they should be done. Because, you know, today's analysis, even as bad as that offense was last year, indisputably bad, Tyler Van Dyke's and the rush offense was really bad last year. That's the big difference this year. That's really the only big difference, because the passing offense last year, before Tyler was hurt, I looked it up and I extrapolated it, and he averaged 314 yards, 314 passing yards per game before he was hurt. That was his average. As bad as he was against Middle Tennessee, he was still averaged through 5.5 games, 314 passing yards. This year, he's averaging 267 passing yards. And he was averaging 280 yards before he hurt his knee. So, you know, everyone was like, oh my God, the receivers are so much better. The receivers are so much better this year. Like, that was the big storyline heading into the Virginia game. There was people tweeting out, you know, these analysis, like, look at, you know, Colby Young was the top receiver last year with 367 yards on the whole year. Now, look, the worst receiver on Miami out of those three has more than that, you know? And so this morning, what I did was I went and I looked at last year's receivers, and I said, let's just take Jake Garcia and Jakari out of the equation, because they couldn't throw the ball to a target half the time correctly. So let's just look at when Tyler was the quarterback for those 5.5 games. He came back for 18 reps after that, where he was not able to throw the ball, right? He wound up leaving those games because he had a really bad shoulder injury. So those 5.5 games that he played to start the season, I said, let's look at the top 3 receivers from last year through 5.5 games, extrapolate that to a 12-game season. Let's look at the 3 top receivers this year in the passing game, extrapolate that to a full 12-game season. And what I found was, I was surprised, actually, it's not even close. The top 3 receivers last year had way more yards. The top receiver had more than the top receiver this year by the end of the year. Second receiver had more than the second receiver. Third had more than the third. The third was Will Mallory was second, I think, last year. He was first last year technically, but I had to use Xavier Restrepo's 1 game healthy with Tyler and extrapolate that. So because Tyler had a 100-yard game in his first game. But you can't discount it. I mean, Xavier would have probably done last year what he's doing this year, if not more so. So anyway, the point being, it's not like the receivers are that much better this year. They're probably about the same as last year. I don't think the receivers have made a big jump up, which does affect Tyler, because there was like clearly one of the clips we showed yesterday in our quarterback analysis. Our point was on one of them, none of the receivers got open. Tyler had all day to throw, and none of the receivers were even remotely open downfield. And what he should have done was throw the ball over a receiver's head out of bounds. And he didn't. He forced it, which he did several times. But as you watch some of the film, yes, what Gary's talking about, the check down routes are wide open, but the receivers really aren't getting open when they don't blitz. When there's help over the top against these last,
they're dropping 2 extra guys into coverage.
Correct. These
wide receivers are not open.
Right. They're not open. That's the whole point. Well, Gary, you don't think that they double team?
But it's not because the receivers suck. It's because they're double and triple teamed.
Gary, there's no elite receivers, my point. Because they double team NFL receivers over the top all the time. Yeah, there's ways to get guys open against double teams. There's routes you can run with a safety over the top to get your top receiver open. And
we've talked about that for a few years. There's no number 1 receiver.
Correct. That's all I'm trying to say. There's all I'm saying is before this game, people were going on Twitter and saying, look at all these amazing Miami receiver numbers versus last year. All I'm saying is it's a facade. It's the same. It's actually less production from the receivers this year. And on tape, you can clearly see they're not even – you can't double team all 3 receivers at once. They're just not getting open. And Xavier is the one who's getting open the most frequently, but he's averaging, I think, 4 yards after contact or something, some ridiculously bad number. So he's not getting that wide open is the point, right? And that's compounding Tyler's own problems of decision making, because it's easy for a quarterback to make a decision when a guy's open. It's a little harder when A, he's trying to get rid of the ball quick because he's hurt, in my opinion. B, he's got no downfield receivers open. And C, his inclination never is to take the check down. That's just not how he's built. He is constantly focused for whatever he was taught as a young person. He's constantly focused, push the ball down the field, push it on the field. For whatever reason, he feels like it's a defeat. It's
destroying his career. He's going to have to change, or else
he has to.
Or something's going to have to give. He's on a 4-week, he's got a 4-week probation, should I call it, whatever here, to get his act together. They're going to coach the living daylights out of him. I don't have any doubt about that. Shannon Dawson will.
I think that we're talking about a trial period. You might be on probation. I don't know what you did
trial illegal.
Period.
All
he
right,
would
trial.
be on a trial period.
I wasn't locked into that word trial. We could call it whatever the heck we want.
Probation.
But here's what I feel strongly about. I think Shannon Dawson is going to spend every waking moment coaching Tyler Van Dyke, I'm sure he already is this week. And they are going to try to fix this issue very quickly. And it is fixable very quickly. Doesn't have to be a 2-month a month-long project. If they're double covering everybody down the field and your outlet is wide open with nobody within 15 yards of them, you got to go to the check down, period. And you don't want to make him gun shy to where, and Shannon alluded to this yesterday, you don't want to make him gun shy to where he's scared to throw the ball down the field, because your big plays might still be there at times, but you must be able to read what these guys are doing on the outside immediately. Okay. And you got to know from the snap, are they going out to cover the checkdowns, or are they backpedaling, or in some cases running full sprint in the other direction to get back there to get in your passing lanes and keep you from completing passes? So this is without question the crisis moment for the Miami Hurricanes offense this week, is working on that, because they're walking into a hornet's nest Saturday. You got a night game at NC State on a Saturday night, a decent team. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. They're playing Miami. This is a tough out Saturday night, guys. This is I don't know what the same person that made Miami a 20-point favorite last week is making Miami a 4-point favorite this week. All I know is our handicapper, Lee Sterling, who we do the You Bet CaneSport show on Wednesday night, he unequivocally said that to take Virginia last week, the line was way too high. And he ended up being right. I don't know yet what he's going to say this week, but it's a crazy little bit of an interesting line. I mean, Miami, a 4-point favorite going into NC State on a Saturday night with an offense that's kind of reeling a little bit. I mean, obviously, we all hope that Miami wins by 4 or more. There's no doubt about it. But this is going to be a tough out, and there is going to be no time for Tyler Van Dyke to be slinging interceptions all over the stadium there in Raleigh. And that's not going to be a situation for Emory Williams either. Okay. Like, this is going to be a little different than catching Clemson by surprise with the backup quarterback and having a restrictive game plan in place that you've never used before. Like, that worked for the Clemson game barely. I mean, they won in overtime. Okay, they were very conservative the whole game. Man, we were up in the press box yelling, "Oh my God, they're going to lose this game because they're being so conservative." That ain't going to fly on the road at Raleigh, I don't think. So they need Tyler Van Dyke to get it this week, and I think Shannon Dawson is going to be spending every minute trying to make that happen, and it will be the variable in Saturday night's game. You agree, Matt?
Yeah, my prediction is they come out throwing the ball, because I think they expect that NC State, at least I hope they do, because, as much as everyone wants to hate on Tyler, you still need to try to win games, and to win games, you have to surprise opponents. And I think NC State has a really good run defense, not a great secondary. That's Miami's favorable mismatch. And if they don't try to take advantage of it at the start on the road, you may as well just say, we'll try to play close.
You're begging for a game again.
Close game and go to overtime again. They won a third straight overtime game.
But I will put an asterisk next to what you just said, and I do agree with you. They need to make sure they call plays where he can complete passes. He has got to get off to a good start this week. If he throws an interception in the first quarter and it's all in his head, I don't know if he might be a little fragile right now. Listen, you can't wall yourself off from the way you played a week ago and what everybody in South Florida is saying about it. Like, as much as you try, Tyler Van Dyke has this feeling of, I am struggling. I am letting my team down. I am letting the fans down. I am not succeeding the way I planned to this season. This was supposed to be my showcase for the National Football League. Okay. So man, it's going to be really interesting up there Saturday. We love Tyler. We hope he comes through. We hope that he goes up there relaxed and executes, and hopefully Shannon Dawson gets the play calls right this week. And there's a happy ending to to all of this. And the fans to me can contribute a little bit too. Like the environment doesn't have to be as toxic as it's been the last few days. It really doesn't. These are kids, they screw up. Nobody ever said this was going to be an undefeated national championship football team this year. We maybe don't need to freak out to this degree the minute there's a little bit of trouble. I mean, the message boards are entertaining and everything, and and that's what they're there for. But maybe the freak out is a little bit over the top. He's got some work to do, and so does the offensive coordinator. I think they're doing it this week, and we will see what the results of it is on Saturday. All right, Matt. So we've got coverage of all of that on the website. We have coverage of the new schedules. If you want to see who Miami's playing in the ACC for the next 7 years, you can go on the website. We got that story there with all the schedules listed, and you could look forward to some road trips you're going to take in the future. I know. I can't wait till they assign dates. I'm loving the idea of going and checking out Cal. I've never seen Cal. I'm already looking forward to that trip. And so you guys, you'll see there's next year in particular, there's some decent trips. They go to Syracuse and Louisville. You can go check out the Muhammad Ali Museum if you want. That's always a good thing it's a great museum. If those of you who travel have never been to the Muhammad Ali Museum in Louisville, put that on your bucket list for next year. Make sure you go check that out. It's a great museum. There's some good stuff on the schedule for next year. I think they go back to Atlanta also. So you can check out the next 7 years on the website right now. All right. So moving on from that, Matt, we also have coverage, obviously, of Lance Guidry's press conference. We will start having some coverage with players starting today as well and continuing all week. But Stephen has been sitting there so patiently since the start of this show, and we're now 26 minutes in. So go ahead, Stephen, stretch those muscles. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Stephen, do that again. Do that stretch again. Take a look at the biceps, okay? Like every time I call Stephen and I'm expecting him to be working, I hear the clank of iron in the background, okay? Because he's always in the gym at his apartment complex. He claims he takes his typewriter down there and works on stories in between reps in the weight room. I'm not sure I'm buying all of that, okay, just to be on record. But we are seeing...
Gary, look at Steven. If you're hearing a clank of iron, it's because he has prisoners in the basement, and you should probably call the police.
Holy cow, Matt. Wow. That came out of nowhere.
Oh, really?
It's like he thinks this is like WWE SmackDown or something. Like, it's like he has to get his shots in every now and then.
You don't defend me against Gary for him calling me a ghoul on Halloween. That's what you get, man.
All right. Well, listen, I wasn't talking to you. Okay. You had your time. Okay. By the way,
why do you get rid of me? Why am I still here? Just get me off the screen.
By the way, I timed it. It was 9 minutes and 43 seconds.
Okay, now you can get rid of me.
You had
everybody.
Your time.
Have a great day.
All right, Matt. We'll see you later. I'm going to talk recruiting. I'm talking recruiting with Steven. Let's get rid of him. We don't need him anymore. All right, Steven. So you've been lifting weights. Those biceps are looking pretty good.
Yeah, just wait until you see the washboard abs.
But you have been working some in between for sure. And we've got a bunch of those stories on the website today. All right. So let me start. Let's see. Which one should I start with? I'm going to start with Michigan commit Chris Ewald. He's a 2025 cornerback from Hollywood Chaminade Madonna. And Miami has been laying in the weeds with this kid for several months now. They clearly are making some headway. Okay. It was looking last week like this might be headed towards a commitment to the Hurricanes, okay? But, okay, he made a one-day trip to Coral Gables on Friday to meet with Mario Cristobal and the recruiting staff, and he left and returned home without flipping his commit from Michigan to Miami. Steven, you spoke to him. The story's on the website this morning. Your thoughts on Chris Ewald?
Yeah, so basically, this is a little bit of a three-team race at the moment. He's committed to Michigan, but it's really a three-team battle between Miami, Florida State, and Michigan. I think that I could see him ultimately ending up at any one of these three spots. Now, of course, he's a 2025, not a 2024. So instead of 2 months until signing day, there's still a year and 2 months until signing day for him. But this has been a kid who has been really, really interesting to follow, really throughout the spring, summer, and fall, basically the entire 2023 calendar year, because he's committed to Michigan. He's been playing with a Florida State sticker on his game helmet, and he's been taking visits to Miami, both game day and one-day visits to Miami. So this guy is making sure that he covers all of his bases. He's making sure that he plays every side so that no matter what, he ends up coming out on top. And I'll be honest, man, I don't blame him. If I was a top 75 cornerback in my class, if I was a top 75 overall recruit in my class, a top 10 corner, if I had all of this kinds of leverage, I mean, heck, I would be doing the exact same thing. I would be playing a very, very long and drawn-out recruitment where I keep everyone a little bit on their toes and not quite certain what the next move is going to be. Because every time that it seems like there's some sort of rumor, there's some sort of buzz, oh man, I hear I hear Florida State could be the team. I hear Miami could be the team. I hear he really will be sticking with Michigan. He ends up doing something that kind of makes all of us scratch our heads and go, okay, well, yeah, I guess I wasn't really expecting that at all. Because I had the chance to talk to him, and he said he kept things very vague. He said, I want to go down there and have a chat with Coach Cristobal about some things. And I was like, okay, so what were those things? And he was, he was very vague. He made sure that he didn't give quite too much away. And he made sure that he kept things ominous enough so that we could all see a reality where, yeah, he does end up picking any one of these three schools. So this recruitment has been absolutely fascinating to me, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be fascinating for a really long time. I think this is a recruitment that is going to take well more than another calendar year before it's all said and done. And with a local superstar just 45 minutes down the road from Miami's campus.
Yeah, it seems that way. And Miami's been doing really, really well here. And like I said, it was legitimately looking like he might commit on that visit on Friday. But the fact that it did not work out that way, suggests this one could go for a while. And but there's time. There's plenty of time. He's 2025, so we'll continue to monitor that one. But you can catch up on everything Chris Ewald was saying on the website this morning. All right, another one that I think is really getting interesting, Stephen, and that is St. Thomas Aquinas 2024. So there's urgency on this one. 4-star running back Jordan Lyle. He is having an amazing senior season, and Miami has been working this one in overdrive. And they got him to come to the game against Virginia on Saturday, and it certainly didn't hurt that he got to watch Mark Fletcher become the star of the game and win the game in overtime. And now the whole South Florida community is buzzing about Mark Fletcher, and that was a good look for Jordan Lyle, Stephen.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Now, Miami was kind of lurking in the shadows for him over the summer. Well, they've emerged from the shadows now. And, I had a chance to talk about this with Josh Newberg. I'm starting to feel like Miami could be a little bit of a threat here. It seems like Miami has started to gain some very real momentum for Jordan Lyle. This was his third time coming to Miami's campus going to Hard Rock for a game day visit this fall. This most recent game against Virginia. That was his third time attending a Miami game already this season. And I asked him what keeps bringing him back, and he said, well, it's my teammates. His teammates, Chance Robinson, OJ Frederick, and Ryan Mack, all at St. Thomas Aquinas, have really been recruiting the heck out of him. They are really, really trying to sell him on the idea of Miami and building that St. Thomas Aquinas to Miami pipeline, keeping local talent in South Florida. And he straight up said, yeah, I believe in my teammates because they haven't steered me wrong. And I don't think they would steer me wrong. So I at least owe them to hear Miami out and see what see what they have to say. Now, I'm not going to give everything away, but I will say that he told me that he has a lot of interest in the Hurricanes. You can read just how much interest he has in the story that we have up on the site. But it is really starting to feel like Miami is a major player here. We saw Miami grab Mark Fletcher last year in a very kind of an almost eerily similar circumstance, pulling a guy away from Ohio State. And it's starting to seem like, man, maybe this really is a possibility, and Miami could ultimately end up with 3 running backs in this class.
All right, so we've got that story on Jordan Lyle and his visit to Hard Rock on the website this morning. Make sure to check that one out. Now we got a big one, Stephen, with emphasis on the big, because this guy is huge, okay? And he's 6'9", 325 pounds. He's an offensive tackle. He is the number 1 junior college offensive tackle in America, and his name is Markel Bell, and he came down as well to see the Virginia game on Saturday, Stephen, and seemed to have a pretty good time.
Yeah, he did. And whenever you say 6'9" and 325 pounds, I had a chance to stand next to him. He is every bit as big as he looks. I mean, man, this guy is absolutely massive in terms of like raw size, both height and weight. He is probably one of the biggest people that I've ever been around.
Not as chiseled as he'll be once he gets into like a real big time weight program, I don't think.
Oh, absolutely. Once he gets to a Power 5 nutrition and weight program, he is going to be absolutely shredded. He's going to be a guy that I would be pretty intimidated by if I had to line up against him.
And I'm going to tell you a real funny story real quick. Bryant McKinney, who's probably the best offensive tackle to ever play at Miami, was absolutely unbelievable. When he came from a junior college to Miami, it was kind of very similar. In fact, they redshirted him for a year to work on his body, work on his strength. And when he emerged from that year, that redshirt year, oh my God, he was unbelievable. I wouldn't be shocked if, in today's day and age, they don't like the red shirt. Nobody likes the red shirt. But, Markel looked to me as big as he is, and we're both in agreement on that, obviously. Just looked like a little bit physically like a work in progress. He will benefit from a year of intense weight training and should come out on the other side an absolute beast. So it'll be interesting to see what the course of action is there. If he commits to Miami, I think he'll be here in January. Correct?
So, I believe so. Yes, he will be a December signee. Wherever he does sign with, he will be a January enrollee.
There you go. So 2 months from now, he could be in the Miami weight room with Coach Feld. And by the start of next football season, maybe Jalen Rivers goes to the NFL, maybe he comes back, whatever. But this guy is going to be a left tackle more than likely. I mean, he looks like he'll be a left tackle, and he will replace Jalen Rivers, if not next year, the year after. So it'll be very interesting to see. I mean, did you get the impression Miami's doing really well there?
Yeah, I definitely got that impression. Now, we saw immediately after the game ended, we didn't have a chance to grab him right after the game or talk to him right after the game because literally the second that he walked out of the stadium, they took him straight to a car, and we saw him get in a car with a bunch of Miami coaches. And Miami made sure that they spent a lot of time around him, and they made sure that they really pitched and emphasized culture. Look at the culture here. Look at how great the culture is. Look at how we develop offensive linemen. Look at how friendly this system is 2 offensive linemen. The offensive line has always been Mario Cristobal's bread and butter. That's what he wants the identity to be. And I think that that's a pretty easy thing to sell to a blue chip offensive lineman like Markel Bell. Now, he is expecting to get back down to Miami for an official visit in December. We'll see if that does end up happening, but right now it definitely looks like that is the expected plan. Alabama has been picking up contact with him. He wants to get out to Oklahoma. Auburn has been in the mix. Ole Miss too. So Miami's going to have their share of stiff competition here, especially if they end up having to go up against Alabama, because that's Nick Saban, Ole Miss and Auburn's NIL programs, and then Oklahoma, who has recruited extremely well for really just like forever. So right now, I think Miami is in a very good spot, and he definitely has very real interest in the Canes. I think that is very, very clear, and I think Miami really is up there for him. But a lot can happen in this last month, so I'm not, quite ready. I'm not quite ready to celebrate yet, and I wouldn't be if I was a Miami fan. But I do think that there is a little bit of room for optimism, but I just wouldn't be too cocky yet.
Sounds like he has quite the visit list. So yeah, they're going to be working hard on that one. But he's certainly worth the effort. All right, we also have a story today on a 2026 defensive lineman by the name of James Carrington. He's from Rabun, Georgia Gap Naksuji School, and the Hurricanes offered him, and he gives us his thoughts on where he stands now in terms of Miami. So check that story out as well. So that's going to conclude Good Morning CaneSport for this morning. We thank you so much for starting out your day with us. I'm happy we were able to get rid of Shodell for you guys for the last portion, I guess, of the show. If you like the show, if you're on YouTube right now, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It will help us with the algorithms at YouTube. If you are not yet a member of CaneSport.com, please come on over to our website, become part of our fan community. You will not be sorry, and you'll have all of us working every minute of every day to do everything that we can do to enhance your fan experience. And we got a special on the site. It's just $1 for your first month, so you can come on over, check it out. We don't think you'll want to leave. After that, it's like $10 a month or whatever. It's not a lot of money, and we think that you will love being a member of CaneSport.com. So for the departed Matt Shodell and Stephen Wagner, the Muscle Man, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a great day, everybody.